Hola, mi nombre es Elizabeth Arango y para el artículo de esta semana, para el reto de esta semana, continuando con la línea investigativa del reto anterior, este artículo también nos habla de por qué las empresas se ven motivadas a generar evasión de impuestos, cuál sería ese objetivo que están persiguiendo, que en este caso hablan específicamente sobre si eso los ayuda o promueve la construcción de un imperio empresarial y cuáles son esos efectos en el corto y en el largo plazo. Este artículo es bastante larguito y como se va a leer, entonces intenté extraer como las partecitas más importantes porque el artículo pues sí tiene muchas tablas y tiende a ser un poco redundante a lo largo pues de su desarrollo. Does corporate tax avoidance promote managerial empire building? We examine the association between corporate tax avoidance and empire building using 35,060 firm-year observation from the United States for the period 1991 to 2015. We build a ComSci empire building measures by conducting a factor analysis on four popular empire building proxies used in the literature. We find a positive association between this ComSci measure and the four proxies used that represent tax avoidance of firms in our sample. As our result suggests, agency problems are inflicted upon firms employing tax avoidance strategies, which in turn facilitate managerial grain extraction through aggressiveness in growth and accumulation of assets. Furthermore, the relationship of corporate tax avoidance to managerial empire buildings is found to be more pronounced in firms with weak governments, poor monitoring mechanisms, and greater chief executive officer power and weak corporate social responsibility performance. We also find that empire building motivated tax avoidance led to lower firm valuation. Our results remain insensitive even when employing several robust tests. The protagonists of agency theory argue that managers are motivated to use corporate resources to build business empire for their own private interests by, for example, achieving higher compensation and satisfying their desire for status, power, and prestige. Self-interest managers have an enhanced opportunity through the separation of ownership from control to involve themselves in tax avoidance practice for their own benefit rather than using this practice to increase shareholders' wealth. Agency considerations for by this separation have been the subject of investigation in several prior tax avoidance studies. In a more recent study showed that managers of tax have firms with weak investor protection divert tax saving into governments and excessive research and development expenditure, highlighting the possibility that these managers use corporate tax saving for empire building's purpose. We examined the association between corporate tax avoidance and empire building using 35,060 firm-year observation from the United States from 1991 to 2015. Following to counter in 2017, we measure corporate tax avoidance using four proxies: the 5-year effective tax rate, 5-year cash effective tax rate, 3-year adjusted effective tax rate, and 3-year adjusted cash effective tax rate. Furthermore, we measure empire building as a ComSci score obtained from the principal component analysis of four proxies of empire building: the acquisition ratio, level of capital expenditure, total asset growth, and growth in properly planned and equipment. We find that corporate tax avoidance is possibly associated with empire building, implying that firms with a higher level of tax avoidance engage in a greater level of empire building exercise. When using firm fixed effects change specification analysis, instrumental variable analysis, two-stage estimation procedure, and the entropy balancing approach. Our findings remain robust. The positive association between tax avoidance and empire building is found to be more significant in firms with poor governance and weak monitoring mechanisms, as these indexes imply a high entertainment index score and low analyst coverage, respectively. We also find that the association between tax avoidance and empire building is more pronounced for firms with powerful chief executive officers and for firms with weak ethical behavior, as reflected by their corporate social responsibility. Performance tax avoidance motivated by an impaired building objective is found to reduce firm value by significant margin. Our study's contribution to the literature is it is the evidence on the influence of tax avoidance on managers' desire to engage in empire building exercise. To the best of our knowledge, the current study is one of the first to link tax avoidance with empire building. We developed a composite measure of empire building using four proxies from the literature to capture inherently elusive corporate phenomena of empire building and to shed light on whether corporate tax avoidance is related to this form of managerial opportunism. Por acá, to examine this phenomenon, our study proposed the following hypotheses. Hypothesis 1 is tax avoidance is possibly associated with empire building. Esa hipótesis es una afirmación. Several studies argue the opportunist behavior by managers can be curbed through improved corporate governance and vigilant external monitoring. The model developed by Crocker and Seymour recognized that an effective mechanism for reduced tax evasion in a world information asymmetry is penalty imposition of the firm's tax officer. Their model asserts that a corporation can offset the possible imposed tax penalties by redesign managerial compensation contracts. The implication is that monitoring the incentive mechanism should be in a place to align to the tax avoidance motivations of managers with those of shareholders. In the absence of these mechanisms, tax avoidance strategies could be implemented by executives to enable the extraction of personal benefits from the firm at the expense of shareholders' wealth. Voy a parar el video porque se va a descargar y ahorita